I'm Chris.
And I'm Des.
And today we're going to talk to you about Hamilton on Disney
Yay!
Plus. Yay. Hamilfilm, as they are.
Hamilfilm, yes.
It is the recording of the Broadway musical created by Lin-Manuel-Miranda and starring him and Leslie Odom Jr. and Renee Elise Goldsberry and Philippa Sue and Jonathan Groff and Davy Diggs and Christopher Jackson and a bunch of great people.
Look at you rattling off everybody's name.
And Anthony Ramos and Jasmine Cephas Jones, right? Those are all the big principal characters, I think. So, Des, what did you think?
Well, let me tell you. Okay, so this is the original Broadway cast, and this was it was recorded in 2016, like way back then, like they do, I think, every Broadway show. They videotape every single Broadway show, and they're out there somewhere. So there's recordings that we should all be demanding to hear and to see and to have access to. It's such a pet peeve of mine that they're just hoarding all this great content. So I watched it Friday night, and I had friends come over, and we had a whole spread and made a whole thing about it, and it was so very fun. And the performances, of course, are stellar, and the camera work I thought was really well done. Like, they don't just set a camera static in the theater; they're on stage and they're going around, and they're focusing you where the action is and where you need to be watching. And I thought that part of it was really well done. Although I would have been perfectly happy with just a camera standing still, fourth row center, and just let me see what's on the stage. There's an aspect of that I enjoy, but I thought it was really well done. The filmography of it, all that part. But the fact that at any time of my day or night, I can just go to Disney Plus and turn on Hamilton is just an enjoyable experience. What did you think, Christopher?
Well, of course, I echo all those sentiments. I loved it too. And, I was reading an article about 2 weeks ago where Disney had cut off their free trial, like for Disney Plus, like 7 days free to try it out. And some people were saying like, oh, they don't need to anymore. And I'm like, no. It's because Hamilton is coming up and they don't want you to be on your free trial. If you want to watch Hamilton,
right,
you need to pay like everybody else.
At least $7.
Because it cost them $1 gazillion to buy the rights to Hamilton, of course.
I'm sure that's true.
And it was I will say, it was very nice of Disney in a way to show that to us on Disney Plus and not make us wait for theaters to reopen like they were going to, not wait another year like they were going to. I really feel like, in a way, Disney's this giant company, and of course it has all these issues like all companies do. But I really appreciate how much they've been pushing out content on Disney Plus. Artemis Fowl that came out, and a bunch of different things they're pushing out. So it's like kids who are at home. Onward came so quickly. Kids who are at home, and like there's stuff for them to do and to watch, and people like. So I enjoy that. You're right. No, I loved the cinematography and the way it was like we were right there on this. I was on the stage with them.
Yeah.
It was so cool, and yeah, they're all amazing. I mean, Lin-Manuel-Miranda's mind, even his mind as you're watching him, you're like, gosh, this guy's brain works so fast. It's crazy. And then I love Renee Elise Goldsberry. I just love her in that.
Okay, when she's singing, you can see her mouth is humongous. And that's partly why her voice is so good. And she has such control over it. She has that, like kind of Audrey McDonald has that space. They have the space in their mouth. And there's some angles that she just really looks like she's opening her mouth. And I thought she's going for it. Well, and just like Jonathan Groff, just spitting all over.
I love that.
He's just going for it. This is what live theater is like.
He, for sure, was one of my other favorites, too. His voice, for one thing, is so beautiful. He has such a beautiful voice. And he and Disney have, like, this long connection now that he's been Kristoff for Frozen 1 and 2 and Olaf's Frozen Adventure. So he's all connected to them. And I guess Linda's too with Moana. So I guess it's all this connection.
Well, they did Hamilton first, and so that I.
Well, they filmed it first, but Disney didn't buy the rights until later.
But
He
here's
was
what I
shopping
think.
them around, I think.
I think Disney owns the Richard Rogers Theater, or has some connection to the Richard Rogers
I think it
Theater,
might. I think you're
because
right.
Tarzan was there.
I think you might be right. Yes.
So
They own a lot
some
of theaters.
connection way back is there
Oh,
between Lynn and
yes.
Disney.
Because
And then it just kept growing. I'm sure that's what it was.
Oh, good one.
Because
Because
that might have been the beginning of their relationship.
In the Heights was in that theater before.
Yes. That's
well,
right.
too.
That's right.
Because I remember seeing it there, and I'm like, oh wow, yeah, that's this connection.
But before that, Tarzan was there, which makes me think that they own that theater.
Disney owns like a bunch of theaters.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong about that, but I know Tarzan was
We can
there.
research it. But I love Jonathan Groff and Renee Elise Goldsberry. I do think go back and watch and see if Leslie Odom kind of has a little bit of a lisp. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm crazy.
I'll go back. That didn't pop out to me. But
my dad's one who noticed it and was like, "What's it?" Because he had never seen the show before, so he was like going in fresh, like, "Okay, what's gonna happen?" I'm like,
"That's awesome. Well, good for Rick.
You're gonna love it." And he really liked. He really liked it. And even my mom, who is not a history buff, let's say, she liked it a lot more than she thought she was going to too. Because it's a great show. Just a great show. And it is hard because you hype these shows. Some shows get so much hype, like this one does, that you're like, can it live up to it? But in many ways, it really does just live up to the hype. It's so good.
There's just no getting around how impressive. It's just so like Renee Elise Goldsberry, when she's in the middle of that song, she's spitting out like crazy words, and you can understand. Her and David Diggs, I think, have the fastest stuff in the show, and you can just understand clear as day everything that they're saying, but they're just rattling it off so fast. It's so impressive.
Yeah, no, David Diggs was another one, and Anthony Ramos' voice is so good too, really good.
For sure.
And Christopher Jackson, there's everybody. Oh man, and what's his name? Oh shoot, I always forget his name. Who plays Hercules Mulligan? Oh, he was.
Oh so yeah, he was killer. He was so good.
He was. What I didn't know is that when we saw it in LA, it was really good. But the humor that this original cast, I mean, because they'd already played these parts for they knew these characters.
Towards the end of their run. Yeah,
they knew these characters, like knew them. That the humor that they had added, there were times I was laughing so hard. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that part was so funny. They're good. They're good. There is a difference between this original cast. I mean, and even the other cast, which have all been really great. It's like there's something about these people that they got it. Right. There's a lot of controversy right now, and I've been reading a lot about it on Twitter, especially about what do we in this time we're in right now with social unrest and stuff. How do you feel, even though there's a big difference between 5 years ago when Hamilton came out and now? 5 years ago, it was like, this is revolutionary in that it's a rap history show. Right. And that you have all these, like you have a black man playing George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, and a Hispanic man playing Alexander Hamilton. Like these are, big changes, obviously, where we're showing race in different ways, and does that matter, and blind casting and all this kind of stuff. But not even blind, like purposeful casting, I think, maybe more so. But then some people have been talking now, like, what do we feel now about a musical that kind of glorifies a bunch of slave owners, not Alexander Hamilton, but Thomas Jefferson, maybe. And so it's like,
Washington.
Yeah, like, what do you feel about, like, glorifying these guys in this way? Like, they're all the heroes of this story, but, like, and there is a talk of slavery a few times in there, of, like, Hamilton doesn't like slavery. And someone even made a comment like, yeah, he hates slavery, and yet he's totally okay working with all these slave owners all the time. Is there a contradiction there? And all this stuff. It's an interesting conversation to have. It obviously would have been totally different in that time period. I don't know. Not in a good way, maybe. But it's an interesting conversation to watch and to have now.
Well, there's an aspect of it where we just can't deny the fact that this group of men were the ones who were the leaders of our country at that time, and that our society that's the course, that's the choice that they made, and that's the history of our country, is this horrible blight that they decided to enslave this entire race of people. And there's an aspect of it where that was just how things were at that time.
Right.
Like, you can't, that it was accepted on some horrible level, but it was accepted that if you made a certain amount of money, then you had slaves in your house and you had all this stuff. And it's just, I think that it's the healthiest thing in the world for us to be talking about it. Yeah. I think that societally we're at a new level of understanding and awareness, and I think it's going to get harder as it tries to get better, and that's just how we all are right now. But I think the fact that we're even having this conversation about it, that it's an issue, that's just the healthiest thing ever.
Yeah.
And that's all we can do, is just keep talking about it and keep bringing people's awareness to it, and just keep saying, well, this is how it was, but it sucks, so let's not do that anymore. And so what Lin-Manuel keeps saying, it's a story of America then told by America now. And you cannot argue with the fact that America now is only going to look like that more and more and more. And if you are holding on to some kind of dream that it's going to go back to be lily white, then you just better let that go, because you're going to be disappointed at how racially diverse hopefully things are going to start being 100% of the time. I can't wait. I think it's just healthy. I think it's just going to be more and more healthy.
Me too. I agree. And I do think too, like, even within 5 years, like, you look at, no one really talked that much about that when Hamilton came out.
Well, and that was the controversial part, like the fact that George Washington was black. Oh no, or whatever. Right. But you watch the show and you see the quality level of the show, and you just get into the show, and it stops being an issue.
Yeah. It is interesting. It's just an interesting conversation to have. Hopefully, one that we continue to dissect and discuss. And it is interesting to look back and think about. It's hard, like, when you look at, like, George Washington's a great example, because there's so many great things he does on one side, and you're like, oh man, this man, we wouldn't even have this country, honestly. Right?
Yeah,
there would be no freedom of speech here, and freedom of religion here, and right to protest and all that kind of stuff here that we have, without this man who went and kind of got it all going. And then at the other side, there's this ugly side to it. Like, yeah, but how can you fight for all these freedoms, and he lets his slaves go at the end of his life, and he struggles with slavery as good and bad, but at the same time, like, yeah, but you still own all these slaves, so how do you reckon that kind of human being?
Well, and that's the thing. To expect humans to be any different than that is kind of the problem. Look at Hamilton. I mean, he went through his whole life, and then he had an affair. So we elevate, and then there's still stuff. So there's nobody that doesn't have any stuff.
Yeah.
Except for Jesus. But everybody else has stuff. And so we got to accept our stuff and each other's stuff and try to do better.
Right. And how do you accept without, like, condoning or promoting that kind of thing? It's like Bill Cosby. My Cash wants to watch The Cosby Show, my son. And I don't have a problem with that. The Cosby Show is that's a great show. And what it did to show, like, black people who were, like, professionals, and they weren't like these poor people who made all these, like, dumb jokes in a way that had in the past had been like how white people really had written black people. It was like black people making black people shows. Like, that's what we wanted. That's what we want. Yeah. And so The Cosby Show was such an advance. I think Felicia Rashad even came out and said something about that. Like, it's the worst part for her, besides obviously these women that were whatever happened to them, with the horrible things that happened to them, was also like it's killing this show that did so much to promote the African American community.
Absolutely.
And now it's tainted because of that man and his actions, and so it's the same kind of idea. Like, here's you doing so much good, and then it's like, oh wait, then you did some really bad stuff. Not like kind of bad, like
Yeah, no.
you're in jail. Bad. And how do you reckon with? Is it still okay to watch the Cosby Show? Can you still listen? Anyways, it's a bunch of
Stuff to think about for
things
sure.
to think about. So that took a different turn than I thought we were going to go down. But summary is that Hamilton, the film, Hamilfilm,
Yes.
is really you won't find a more entertaining live musical theater production. I don't think you can find one taped. And so I say watch it.
The highest quality. It is absolutely the highest quality level. It's way better than any of those live TV shows that they've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years. It's just cut above because it's in the theater and it's the way it was intended. It was absolutely so well done.
Agreed. So
don't miss it.
We say watch it multiple times if you haven't already.
Absolutely.
Okay, let us know what you guys think of the film and who your favorites were, your favorite songs. There were some songs that I really feel like there are some songs that, and it is that way with every musical, right? You listen to the soundtrack, and you're like, oh, this is my favorite. And then you see the show, and you're like, this is my favorite. Because when they see it, it's something different. So let us know all that good stuff as well, too. Okay. I'm trying to see how to end the recording. Bye. This is literally me trying to... Nope. Des, what's happening right now? How do you end it?
Is it still recording?
I think so.
It's on you, Chris. I got nothing.
Nope.